all, I just love skiing. Like, so much. There's nothing in the world that brings me more joy, ever.
Scared to death right now, but I've got this. Like, I know deep down inside I'm capable of what I'm about to do.
I felt like the rehab was pretty simple and straightforward, and I learned how to appreciate my body and how to take care of it, what to eat, and like to stretch. I was 18, so I felt like I was invincible at the time.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Athletic Stance Podcast, a skier's perspective with your host, yours truly, Scott Chrisman. In this podcast, I have made it my job to go out and interview skiers at the highest level of the sport, to explore their perspective on life, what shaped and influenced them to become the person they are, and a whole lot more. First, let's take a look at our sponsors, because without them, none of this is possible. Our first sponsor is Northwest Tech. If you haven't heard of them yet, you're missing out. They hand make customizable 3-layer outerwear to order in the Pacific Northwest. And that means you know that it keeps you warm, dry, and looking unique while you're sending it around the mountain. They've been generous enough to give me a coupon code for my listeners. Use the code AOS75 to get $75 off any custom piece of outerwear. Their site is in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by POC. POC makes the best helmets, goggles, and protective wear out there. They've been dedicated to protecting athletes since day one, and I wouldn't wear a different helmet, goggle, back pad, or hip pads. With their spin technology and VPD system, there are no other products on the market that are like it. Definitely go and check out POCsports.com and protect yourself today.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Athletic Stance, episode number 26. This week's episode, we have a good friend of mine, a fellow ski racer turned big mountain skier, someone who has won the Sick Bird Award and overall is one of my favorite people to ski with, always hucking massive backflips. And just a overall crusher in the sport. Without further ado, Mr. Tristan Teton Brown.
My name's Tristan Brown. I've gone by Teton pretty much my whole life. It's a nickname my grandparents gave me at a young age. I grew up in Seattle until I was 10 and learned how to ski at Stevens Pass, Washington. My mom is a huge skier. She came from a big ski family. She raced along with two of her brothers, and they all got it from my grandma, who kind of started the passion for skiing in our family, and I'm super thankful to her for that. And so when we lived in Seattle, we'd all kind of hop in the car and drive up to Stevens every weekend. Started ski racing there and got to a point where I was competitive enough that if I wanted to remain competitive, I had to start coming up and training on like Wednesday nights and Friday nights. That was when I was in like 4th and 5th grade. And we were visiting Sun Valley a lot. We had a little condo here. I'm living here now. And we were liking it more and more every time we came through. And so we kind of tossed up the idea of maybe moving here. and I was going into middle school. My sister was going into high school. The timing just made sense. So as a family, we pulled the trigger and moved to Sun Valley, where I could pursue ski racing more seriously. And I was big into soccer at the time too. And the nice thing about being in a mountain town is that you could juggle those sports pretty well, and that worked out. Um, and so yeah, we moved here, and I lived a stone's throw from the mountain. And the schools are super cooperative. You're able to get out at like 11:30 in the morning and go straight to the mountain, eat a quick lunch, and train until 4, which is awesome. So I think I'm really thankful for that. I think that did a lot of positive things for my skiing, just the amount of practice and um, having it be so close. I think I was training, 5, 6 days a week all through middle school and high school in the winter, and then doing a lot of dry land. And the Sun Valley Ski Education Foundations, it's grown a lot even since I was in it, but it's kind of an academy now. But they take their ski racing really seriously, and there's a lot of great coaches. So I learned a lot from that. And growing up in the Wood River Valley was pretty incredible. There's a lot of awesome outdoorsy stuff to do here. In the winter, it's mostly centered around skiing, but in the summer, you can get out to the lakes, lots of great hikes in the Sawtooth and boulders and pioneers. Uh, and then ended up playing some soccer in the fall and the spring, and then later on started playing some lacrosse in high school. So there's never any shortage of sports or outdoor activities, which keeps everyone fit around the valley. Similar thing for a lot of mountain towns, which is great. A great environment for someone who's trying to be an athlete and wants to stay in good shape and whatnot. Rode bikes a lot, which is great for the knees and stuff like that. So pursued ski racing through high school and got to a point where I decided I wanted to race in college. So I visited a bunch of ski schools, UNR, Montana State, and Boulder, I think were my top 3 choices. And I decided on CU Boulder. But once I got there, I kind of had gotten burnt out on ski racing. I had lost a little bit of the fun in it, which was disappointing for me because it had been such a huge passion for me my whole life. So I decided to take a year off of racing. I thought maybe I would get back into it, but in that year off, I had a lot of fun just free skiing some of the terrain parks and getting into some more big mountain terrain. And then a friend of mine told me about the big mountain circuit. And so I tried my first big mountain that year. I think it was in Crested Butte, and had a blast. Didn't qualify for finals. I think my gear wasn't, kind of where it needed to be. I was skiing on some park skis. They might have even have been center mounted or something. And and my knowledge, I had no coaching in the sport, and my knowledge just wasn't where it needed to be. But I learned a lot right off the bat, and I had a great time. So I was really jazzed about coming back and doing it the next year, after just doing one comp that year. So I think the next year I signed up for, as many comps as I could get away with while still going to school full time at CU. I think I did like 4 competitions, and was somehow able to kind of juggle it with my school schedule. Unfortunately, I had some friends that were going to school with us that I could travel with, and we would do a little bit of studying on the road. But yeah, that was great, and I think I competed for about 6 years, and I'm not fully done with it yet, although the last 2 years I've kind of taken a big step back from competing. You know, my last season of doing it kind of full on was kind of a low snow year, and so a lot of the competitions had hard packed snow, and my body's getting to the point where I probably shouldn't be hucking, 40 foot inverts to hard pack. Not to say that I don't still do that kind of stuff sometimes, but you know, my knees are starting to ache a little bit, so I'm searching for more steeper landings and fluffier landings as well. So let's see. Yeah, I mean, I graduated from CU Boulder in May of 2013 with a degree, with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Environmental Studies. I did an internship for a sustainable wastewater treatment company for about 6 months out of college, moved to Seattle to figure out if the city life was for me, and realized that I wanted to be, in the heart of the mountains. And so shortly after that, I moved. Just after summer, I moved to Jackson, Wyoming, and spent 2.5 years there, 3 winters, which is where I think my big mountain skiing career kind of took a big boost. Just being in that environment and having all that incredible terrain at your disposal is fantastic. It's kind of like the mecca in my mind in the lower 48 for big mountain skiing. So yeah, got some great skiing in there. Started to build my social media presence, and got linked up with some awesome sponsors, and kind of kept building it from there. Went on some sick trips, did a little bit of filming, and then this past year, nice thing about Jackson is its proximity to skiing in the area, but it's also super close to Sun Valley where I grew up. So I would come back here a lot to ski both areas and just to access the amazing mountains in both areas. And so about a year ago, I decided I would come back to the Sun Valley area and kind of reconnect with the mountains over here for a year. And now I think after doing that, it's been great, but I want to be, back where there's tons of big mountain skiing at your fingertips, even off the tram. So I'm going to be back in Jackson this winter. That about catches it up.
Hell yeah, brother. First thing that comes to mind, you throw some of the biggest backflips around. So what are some of the takeaways that you took from ski racing that you still use today in your skiing?
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as what ski racing did for my skiing today, up to the point where I am now, at the very core of it is just being really solid and strong and confident on my skis. Ski racing, there's so much repetition in it. You're just kind of doing turns over and over and over again, and you've got a coach kind of talking to you and be like, fiddle with it just a little bit, just tinker with it, and tinker with it, and tinker with it until you've got your turns just pretty dialed. And so just doing that gives you the ultimate background as a skier, in my opinion. And you can notice it when you're watching racers, ex-racers ski big mountain and stuff like that. They're just really solid with their skis underfoot, keeping their upper body over their skis and their stance staying in an athletic stance and stuff like that. And so, credit that for a lot of what I'm able to do on skis now, and kind of translating that into doing tricks and stuff like that. Honestly, I think it's kind of just comfortability, like feeling confident on my skis and knowing that if I do, a 40-foot backflip in some steep big mountain terrain, knowing that I'm going to be able to ski out of it, or, just being confident that if I land and I'm a little off balance, my muscle memory will kick into place and I'll be able to, swap edges really quick and avoid that rock or that tree or something. But yeah, and in addition to that, it teaches you a lot of discipline when you're in like a regimented training program like that. Whereas, I love the big mountain culture and stuff. It's like a lot more relaxed than it was when I was ski racing. But it teaches you how to train properly and how to approach competition kind of like a race, where you just analyze every little aspect of the venue like you would a course, and visualize your runs and stuff like that is all really beneficial for big mountain.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree that ski racing is such a good platform to launch into any other type of skiing because of discipline. And you also talked about dry land. It sets you up across the board for success.
Yeah, it's been interesting because Sun Valley just got a big mountain team about well, I guess it was their first full season this year, and I did some guest coaching for the team, which was a lot of fun watching these kids start out in this sport that I didn't really get the opportunity to do at their age, and started in college without any coaching. So it's really special to be able to transfer all my knowledge over to these little guys, and so that they have like a little bit of a leg up compared to where I was when I started the sport. But how this correlates to racing and all that is we really encourage a lot of the kids to start out racing before they start the big mountain team. In fact, we don't allow, I think we don't allow 11-year-olds. So they have, or no, we don't allow 10-year-olds. So they have to go through, freestyle or racing before switching over to big mountain, which, has a lot of benefits because of the background, but also, it is a dangerous sport, and it's important, that these kids aren't kind of just throwing themselves willy-nilly down the mountain. They kind of have a good background and know what they're doing before they're approaching cliffs and trying to do tricks off them and stuff like that. So it's good.
That's an awesome system. I think that racing is so important for fundamentals for any skier. I remember sitting on top of a cliff in Jackson, lining up some trick, and a train of Groms came by and just one by one hopped off the cliff, and it was definitely, it shows what a mountain town and being around skiing all the time and really nailing the fundamentals does for a skier.
Yeah, coaching in both, at any of these resorts, but just seeing these kids come up and the skill level that they're at already, and they have so much to learn from all these people, and especially with like social media and stuff now, they're seeing right at their fingertips, they're seeing all of these like pro skiers and stuff do this amazing stuff, and it gives an incredible amount of inspiration, and they're able to just get out of school early and hop over to the mountain and try stuff out. And they're so young and flexible, they just crash and bounce right back up and try it again. Pretty fun to watch.
Totally. The Groms are so fun to watch. Switching gears quickly, what was your favorite part about ski racing growing up?
I loved it while I was doing it until kind of the end. I've always been a very committed person, and like I said, soccer was my other big sport growing up, and I love soccer too. But the great thing about ski racing was it's all on you. You're the only person that kind of determines whether or not you do well. Yeah, I mean, a couple of the other things that I liked about ski racing, one was the ability to travel to a lot of places um, and ski some awesome mountains. I didn't realize it until later on when I was doing Big Mountain, but I traveled to some ski areas and really kind of only skied the groomers in a lot of these places because I had my race skis and stuff on. Sometimes I'd get out if there's powder and whatnot. Of course, I'd go use some of the powder, but um, nice thing about Big Mountain is you look at the whole mountain, and oftentimes you're looking at the steepest stuff and stuff like that. But you go to a new mountain and you're really um, skiing the most extreme or the most interesting stuff that the mountain has to offer. So I've gone back to a lot of these mountains that I went to as a ski racer, and it's like an experience, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, ski racing really instilled the love of the whole sport of skiing for me.
Ski racing definitely did the same for me, so I can 100% relate to that. Are there any routines that you took from ski racing that you can now apply to the area of big mountain skiing?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'd say I take pretty good care of my skis. After spending so much time waxing and tuning my skis from ski racing, that was almost like a before and after training ritual. Not always, but it's almost a religious thing that you do while you're ski racing. And so that just became habit, and I certainly don't tune my skis as often as I did when I was racing, but I'm super careful. I keep straps on them at all times, and um, you know keep the bases waxed fairly frequently, and definitely looking at the terrain that I'm in, and trying to keep my edges where they need to be, sharpness wise, and analyzing other aspects of my ski, looking at the bindings, making sure my gear is top shape, and especially if I'm going into the backcountry or something like that, that I have everything I need. Yeah, and then in training, dry land, stuff like that. I spent a lot of time in the gym trying to bulk up when I was ski racing. Didn't really work, but I learned a lot of great lifting and body weight exercises, and dry land routines that I still use today, which are great. Of just kind of keeping the body strong, the core strong, and the muscles around the knee strong, just to prevent injury, and keep you where you need to be when the season hits and throughout the season.
There's definitely a ton of life lessons that you can get from ski racing all around. Even some of the tough ones, like getting injured. Have you been seriously injured through the ski racing process or the big mountain process, and what has that looked like for you?
Yes, many times. In ski racing, there was never a serious injury for me, at least. Trying to think back. Yeah, I broke my hand once. I like hooked a gate and flipped over and landed on my hand. But that was like in the middle of one of my like biggest seasons, and so I didn't get it fixed, and it ended up healing on its own, which is just like a little bump in my hand. Um, so I was still able to kind of get through the season. And there I would get shin bang or a lot of bruises from banging gates and stuff like that. But yeah, no, my knees made it through all that, and I didn't really start to get serious like injuries, like broken bones and ligament tears and stuff like that until I started doing freestyle skiing. I think it was my first year after like stopping racing, and I started doing like some flips, and I think I under rotated a back flip and dislocated my shoulder and broke like a chipped off piece of bone. And then the next year, I was doing a switch 540 and overshot the jump, over rotated, and came down and dislocated my other shoulder. And through both of those injuries, and then just skiing pretty hard, I ended up just dislocating both of my shoulders many times through different ski injuries, and then also just from other athletic endeavors and stuff, to the point where my sockets were so worn down, or it was just popping out of my sleep for both of my shoulders. So I had surgery. They are both great now. They were reinforced, so I have even more bone keeping my shoulder in its socket than most people do in their shoulder. So it's not impossible, but nearly impossible for it to come out now, unless I break the socket, I think, which is nice. And I also do a lot of shoulder exercises like pull-ups and push-ups and stuff like that to keep the muscles around it strong, to keep it from potentially coming out. Additional injuries, I've been pretty lucky with my knees compared to a lot of skiers, which I'm really thankful for. I have torn my MCL before, which didn't need surgery, just needed about 3 weeks off. And, a lot of riding the stationary bike to just keep it strong. There is something a little funky with my left knee right now. I think it's just kind of wear and tear. I've got, I think maybe kind of a little bit of a battered medial meniscus left knee. But the keep legs and muscles around my knee, the less it hurts, or doesn't really hurt at all. So I've been kind of trying to keep it strong and getting out on the bike, which really helps with that. So yeah, other than that, it's just minor things like lots of bruises and shin bang all the time. I actually gotten better with that. I don't wear shin bang used to be a lot worse when I was convinced I needed to be in a plug race boot to ski aggressively, and I've learned since then. And plus, the technology of boots has gotten a lot better, that you don't need to be in a super stiff boot to have great performance out of your boots. So I'm still in a 4-buckle boot, but kind of a more freestyle form, which has a little bit more give, but still stiff enough to give you a good response when you need it.
While we're on it, what boot do you ride in?
Yeah, so I skied for Atomic for a couple years and have since switched to a smaller company called Crossin, which is just starting up, founded by a good friend of mine in Sun Valley. They're making skis in Seattle, but I've been really impressed with the skis that they've come out with so far, and it's been really cool being a part of that company. Also, having a lot of input in how the skis are made and whatnot. So I've been happy to make the switch over the last year, but this and great stuff. And so I once I realized how awesome their boots were, I decided I would stick with those. So I've got the Hawks Ultras for my main boot skiing at the resort, and hike twos and stuff like that. And then I recently also got the Hawks XTDs, which is pretty much the same boot, well, similar to the Hawks Ultras, but they've got the pin inputs, and it's all made out of carbon 130. I've got it right here. I don't know, the video doesn't seem to be working, but yeah, awesome boot, super light but still stiff, and walk mode, which is actually the first boot I've ever had with walk mode. And I've really been enjoying that. So I've coming from racing and all that, I kind of accepted a while back that it was just a part of skiing to have your feet hurt all the time, which is silly to think about it like that. But I had convinced myself that for the performance it was worth it to just kind of grit your teeth and bear it. But yeah, since then, especially since the technology's gotten better, you don't need to do that. So it's been cool, having a little bit more comfortable feet all out in the backcountry, and feeling good when I'm skiing down.
Yeah, totally. It's funny how much you grow up thinking that your feet just need to hurt skiing and you love it so much. But anyways, flip back to the shoulder surgery. How long was the recovery on the shoulder surgery, and what all did that look like for you?
Let's see. Well, it was a pretty extensive surgery. First, they tried to go in orthoscopic, and realized that there was a lot more damage. I think my rotator cuff and labrum were both kind of torn in both shoulders. So they had to go in, and they call it a Latarjet procedure, when they cut off a part of your bone and then move it over to bolster up the socket, basically. So the recovery is pretty extensive. I think it was 6 weeks in one of those big slings, that often has your arms sticking out at a 90-degree angle, and you got a ball to squish on. So yeah, 6 weeks in one of those, and then another 6 weeks of rehab and recovery until fully healed. So yeah, about like 3 months till like 100%. And that was pretty consistent with both. I think I may have slightly re-injured my left one, which is the second one I did. I think I was just a little impatient and started skateboarding a little too early, and had a fall and kind of set back my recovery a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. I may have lost a little bit of range of motion, but my range of motion was already better than my doctor said it was supposed to be, so I was pretty thrilled about that. Although, I wasn't too concerned about it, because most of the sports I'm really passionate about, I don't use my shoulders all that much. In skiing and soccer and skateboarding, surfing, stuff like that. Well, I surf behind a boat. I guess I don't do much paddling. Yeah. But no, I mean, it's great. I could surf just fine. I can still throw a football and all that, which is nice. So got pretty lucky. I think that type of surgery was only invented or came about, I think, like 5 or 6 years before I had my first surgery. So yeah, I talking to my surgeon about it, he's like, "You're lucky this exists because before then they probably would have, you know, tried. I mean, they would have done the best they could, but they wouldn't have been able to keep my shoulder in the socket as well, and I might have re-dislocated it, especially considering some of the crashes I've had since then. Um, so yeah, super thankful that yeah, I was able to get that kind of cutting edge surgery, no pun intended. Um, and yeah, and my shoulders are great now.
That's awesome. It's definitely lucky when surgery goes the way you want it to. You talked about doing some exercises to keep your shoulders strong. I've also seen some videos that are a little bit different than what most people do for fitness as a fitness routine. So, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do for fitness?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's really important to keep it dynamic and fun. That's my biggest thing. Um, you know, if I some people can do it if you're going to the gym like every day and doing kind of similar things and you don't get bored, but that's not me. You know, you can get in a routine where you're kind of doing that stuff, but oftentimes you'll hit a point where you'll get distracted by something else, or you just get bored of your workout and you'll kind of fall off a little bit. So just like anything that you like to do, I think it's important to keep it fun. So depending on the season, right now there's great mountain biking. It's great for the lower body and whatnot. And so I get out to ride about 4 or 5 days a week, and usually try to do um, a decent pedal, an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the day, and then also get some good downhill riding in. We've got the bike parks open now, so I do like to get lift access to riding, but I try to make sure I get a pedal in at some point too. And then I also play co-ed soccer 1 day a week, and there's pickup 3 days a week. I usually try to get that in, so 1 day. So I'm doing soccer 2 days a week. And then I do, like I said earlier, some upper body stuff to make sure my shoulders are in good shape, like lots of body weight exercises. I've kind of in recent years have strayed away from the weights, especially machines, but I still do some free weights on occasion, but I'm mostly into body weight exercises now. So especially for the shoulders, I do a lot of like pull-ups and chin-ups, and then push-ups, a lot of core exercises just kind of on a yoga mat, dips, and climbing ropes, using the exercise balls or risers, box jumps, infinite stuff like that. And my buddy has an awesome kind of alternative workout gym that I've been helping out with over the last couple, or like year and a half, which focuses on kind of working out outside, a little bit more caveman style workout. You generally don't wear shoes, and there's a lot of like free body movement. You're kind of crawling around on the ground. There's some capoeira influences to it, or some martial arts. And so I will go over there and work out with him pretty frequently. I just like to mix it up, and do a lot of different things. And I think that's really important because you access all these different muscles in the body, and you're getting the slow twitch and the fast twitch muscle fibers, and just keeping your body prepared for whatever you might encounter, even beyond trying to be a great skier. If you find yourself in a survival situation or anything where you would need to perform at your best, then you're ready for it.
Definitely. I think that's an awesome motto or just way to live. And along with that, do you have a diet that accompanies the way that you train and this kind of adaptive and just kind of all-encompassing training style?
I try to get pretty much everything that I need. I have pretty basic. I mean, I switch off. Generally, this morning I had some oatmeal, steel cut oats with some fresh berries. It's nice to have, in summer season you get awesome fresh berries for fairly cheap. So, I threw some strawberries, some blueberries, some bananas, and some peaches in there, and then threw some chia seeds in there just for that extra, omega-3s and protein, and then some yogurt, and yeah. So that was my breakfast this morning, and I do that every other day. On the off days, I like to have a big protein-filled egg and sausage and avocado sandwich for breakfast. Get some other veggies in there as well. And for lunch, I like to get a lot of protein in my diet. I often have burgers, and I eat a fair amount of burritos and stuff like that. But I do try to incorporate a lot of vegetables and make sure I'm getting a well-rounded diet. And then I wait tables at Globus in Sun Valley, and we get meals there, and so I get some good Asian infusion meals there. And yeah, I just keep it well-rounded. Make sure you're getting a little bit of anything, of everything, and kind of the same way I work out. Don't really stick to one thing. Move it around and kind of hit all the bases.
Totally makes sense. Might as well live the same lifestyle all around. Do you do any sort of meditation or mindfulness practice?
No, not in the traditional sense of meditation. It's something that I've kind of interests me, and I'd like to get into that at some point. But I hate to use this term because I think it's overprescribed and people kind of hold on to it a lot. But it is important to mention, I think, because it kind of describes who I am. But ever since I was in first grade, teachers were telling my parents, your kid has ADHD, you should put him on medication. And I'm prescribed some medication for that. I don't often take it, but it's really hard for me to sit down and clear my mind for a bit, like a lot of people do meditate. And so I've tried that, and there's clearly some great benefits that you can get from it, but like I said, it's pretty difficult for me. So I try to clear my mind and focus on certain aspects of my life, and I do some deep breathing and stuff in a different way. I'll go when I'm riding my bike is almost like meditation for me, or Are you aware of who Wim Hof is? Yeah, I got pretty into him last summer and kind of did one of his courses, online courses, and that got me pretty into um, deep breathing and stretching and routines like that, and then also the cold water immersion. Um, so whenever I go to the gym, you know, 3 days a week or something like that, I generally go and do a cold shower for about a minute, and then I'll hop in the steam room. And while I'm in the steam room, I'll do some deep breathing and a little bit of stretching, and then for as long as I like in the steam, and then I'll go back in and do another minute long cold shower, which is really nice when it's this hot out. This is a little more difficult to do in the winter, but that is certainly, it's a great opportunity to kind of just reset and chill out for a bit and kind of in a sense meditate, but kind of just recenter myself is kind of how I think about it. Yeah, and then going from hot to cold to hot, or to cold to hot to cold is great for the body and the muscles, and Wim Hof will tell you all about that. But yeah, so that's been cool and something I've been enjoying doing.
Definitely. The cold, hot, cold is just one of those things that you can like feel is good for you.
Yeah, and it's awesome, especially in the summer, because it's like, man, you're like dying in the heat. You're like, okay, I'll just go see how long I can submerge myself in this river for. And you can make it like a daily routine, and the longer you can do it, the better it is for you. And there's all sorts of benefits, and boosting your immune system, increasing longevity and whatnot. So pretty cool. It's awesome watching him pioneer that, and seeing his following grow over the past 2 years.
So that leads me to the next topic of mindset. Obviously, the things that you do, like the massive flips and stuff, require a certain mindset. So how do you overcome fear or get over fear while you're up there?
Sure. Yeah. Really is an interesting question that a lot of people have asked me, and it's kind of funny to think about. It's like, oftentimes these scenarios where you're putting yourself into a pretty gnarly scenario where you're totally comfortable, going inverted off, like a 60-foot cliff or something like that. Did I lose you, Scott? No, are you there? Okay, yeah. I'll just step back a little bit. Yeah, no, it's pretty wild to think about that you can feel comfortable throwing yourself upside down from a 60-foot drop or something like that. Really, what it is just the preparation. One, just having so much practice on skis that you feel that comfortable just skiing up to do the trick and then skiing away from it. That you have the experience, and it's just like another day on the mountain. And then of course that there's the mental aspect of it. Like I said before, I do a fair amount of deep breathing, in the steam room, and kind of sometimes when I'm just like chilling. It calms you down and gets you in the right mindset to perform, whatever it may be. I think that translates to many different activities or whatever you know you might be approaching. But yeah, so for me personally, um, I generally, if I'm doing like a really big jump or something that requires um, a lot of preparation, it's probably something I've been thinking about for a while. Um, like, you know, a week or days prior, um, or, you know, years prior, depending on it. Uh, so I've already got a good idea of what I'm going to do or what exactly probably I'm planning on doing before I even put my boots on that day. And the night before, I am visualizing it and thinking about it. You know, and that's not always the case. Occasionally, maybe I'll come across something the day of and be like, okay, the conditions are great now. I should do that now. But even then, you know, the trick is something that I've done before or I've visualized 100 times in my head before. So, um, you know, it's not foreign to me. I I'm comfortable with the idea of doing it. And then, you know, as you're approaching doing the jump, you're visualizing it over and over again and taking deep breaths, trying to keep yourself calm. Um, you know, the in through the nose and out through the mouth, I think is just, it's totally underrated if you're trying to keep yourself like in the zone. So if I'm ever like, if I feel my heart rate getting up high or anything like that, I'll just be like taking deep breaths and just thinking about what I'm gonna do, um, and definitely just analyzing any variables that might, you know, screw it up or make it more difficult or might create a problem. Um, and you know, it's like any sort of rock, any um, discrepancy in the transitions, um, you know, anything that could possibly throw you off, and account for all that. And then, you know, a little bit more visualization. And then shortly before dropping in, I like to just uh, kind of clear my head. I visualized it enough. I know what I'm going to do. So I just take a few more deep breaths and stretch out, shake it out, and smile. And remember that I'm doing it for the love of the sport, and that it's about to be an awesome adrenaline rush. And then I drop in, spend it.
Totally. You definitely can't overthink it too much when you're dropping in. Um, where's one of your favorite places that you've ever traveled skiing?
Favorite places that I've ever traveled to ski? Um, ooh, that's a good question. Well, let's see. We did a ski camp in Ushuaia, Argentina, in high school for it was a ski racing camp, which left a huge impression on me. It wasn't my first time skiing abroad, but uh, I was 16 at the time, and I was really competitive and into racing, and got to go down there with our coaches and some of our ski teams, some of my best friends at the time, and yeah, the southernmost city in the world, super cold, but just like awesome culture and some pretty gnarly weather up at the resort. But um, you know, just being able to take a month in the middle of the summer and ski this cool resort with you know, some pretty intense peaks and we didn't do, you know, we didn't do all that much free skiing. We were running a lot of gates at the time, but um, you know, just being in that environment was awesome for me for sure. And then another one that sticks out, I've skied all around the West, and Revelstoke is one of the coolest resorts I've ever skied, since starting like up in Big Mountain, because they've got some awesome Big Mountain terrain there. But going up to ski Alyeska when I was still ski racing, and that was probably the first time I actually got into like some like gnarly Big Mountain terrain, just skiing off the top of the peaks there, and just how steep it was, and we got tons of snow while we were there.
Was that the same year that an avalanche went across the course?
Yeah. You remember that? Sweet. Yeah, but yeah, they had to postpone the race because this avalanche took out the course. so everyone got to go powder skiing, which is the best part.
So we're getting to get towards the end here. What do you think about climate change and kind of the current social condition that we live in?
Sure. Well, I think it's sad. I think it's unfortunately inevitable that we're going to continue to see a lot of negative changes to that are resulting from increase in global temperature due to climate change. I do think it's important that we try to combat it to some level. Generally starting, you can do it on a personal level where you try to work on your own ecological footprint, try to drive, more fuel efficient cars and stuff like that. I'm not the best with that. I have a snowmobile and I need a truck to tow it around. So I do kind of wish it'd be nice to have an electric truck and an electric snowmobile if they both performed the same way. I think those might be available, maybe not the electric snowmobile, but yeah, I think the best thing that we can do is get involved with your states and your local legislature and whatnot. Organizations like POW are doing a great job with just informing people and trying to get people organized to vote. I think that is definitely one of the great places, or if you want to try and make an impact, that's probably the best way that you can do it. Hopefully we can get some carbon taxes and just get people starting to move in the right direction, and some states are, and it's really cool to see. But we've got a long ways to go for sure. But yeah, it'll be, we're going to see a lot of change in our lifetimes, I think. And it's going to be kind of sad, I think Camp of Champions up at Whistler a couple years ago decided they had to pull the plug because the glacier is just receding to the point where they weren't having enough snow over the summer months to keep that awesome freestyle camp going, which, especially for the winter sports community, is not so much a canary in the coal mine because there's been so many red flags already. But, hopefully something like that brings it to the broader spectrum and people kind of are starting to realize that, hey, if you love skiing and getting out in the mountains and enjoying the snow, it should realize that it may not be there forever. So yeah, yeah, definitely important to spread awareness about that, and I'm really glad Pal's been doing a good job of that, protect our winners, and yeah, I hope we can kind of continue to move in the right direction. Hopefully, we can get an administration that is more keen to make a difference in that area in a couple years. Yeah.
So, what's one piece of advice that you would pass along to someone who might want to do what you've done?
Sure. I get the opportunity to pass on advice to these kids that I guess coach a lot, which is cool because it's inspiring to see these kids, uh, at a young age, so passionate about the sport, very much like I was. Um, and I think one of the main things that I like to tell these kids is to keep it fun. I almost stopped skiing entirely. I don't know if that ever would have happened, but I felt like doing that for a little bit after I got burnt out on racing. And I'd got to college and I was like, oh, maybe I'll just join the lacrosse team and focus on my studies. um, and I took a year. I stopped racing and realized that I still very much loved the sport, and that there were so many other ways to approach it, more creative ways, that I realized that it's just endless, the amount of fun and joy that I can get out of the sport. It'll just keep on giving as long as I keep finding new ways to approach it. Um, so yeah, I think that is the most important thing that I could say to someone who is interested in making skiing a big part of their life, is that it will always be fun. Just keep it fresh, you know, approach it from different angles. Um, I think it's important, especially when someone's starting out. You can do it my way. You can start racing for a while and get that background. Or you can do some freestyle. You can do some bump skiing, some racing, some big mountain. Um, Heck, you could even get into some Nordic and stuff like that, if that's what you're into. Um, just applying every aspect is going to make you a better athlete and a more rounded, better rounded skier. Um, and it's going to help you out in the long run. It'll teach you a lot of great life lessons that go beyond skiing as well. So yeah, just get out there and get it and have fun.
So, final question. If you could have one significant impact in the world, what would it be?
I would like to say that that is tough. I on a basic level, I think and at this point in my life where I've reached some people, I think hopefully I um, draw some inspiration from people, get them stoked about the sport, uh, and excited about the possibilities that are out there, and how you can approach it, and different ways that you can ski, and areas and places, and how to instill that passion for the sport. And then beyond skiing, um, I hope that my passion for environmentalism and caring for our surroundings and our community and our love for outdoor recreation will be, appreciated, and also can inspire people to, you know, treat their environments with respect, so that many generations to come in the future will be able to ski and appreciate the wilderness and the mountains that surround us.
So, where's the best place for people to find you?
I am on Instagram at Teton Brown, one word. Or I am a big part of the Sun Valley and Jackson communities.
Well, there you have it, folks. Number 26 with Teton Brown. Sorry about the audio. His internet wasn't the best at a couple of times, but overall, I think it was an awesome message. Kid absolutely crushes it. Go check out some of the stuff that he does, or his Instagram, and get ready to have your mind blown with some crazy stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys next week here on the Athletic Stance. Adios.